You're not lost because you lack motivation. You're lost because you've forgotten who you were before the world told you who to be. There's a quietness inside you right now, a part of you that's tired. Not physically tired, though, maybe that too, but tired in a deeper way. Tired of trying, tired of pushing, tired of waking up each morning and convincing yourself that today will be different. That today you'll finally feel it, that spark, that drive, that thing everyone keeps calling motivation. And you search for it. You watch the videos, you read the quotes, you set the alarms, you make the lists, you tell yourself tomorrow I'll be different, tomorrow I'll be ready. But tomorrow comes and you're still you, still heavy, still waiting for something to change. Here's what nobody tells you: you're not broken, you're not lazy, you're not failing at life because you can't summon the energy to chase what you think you should want. You're just trying to run on fuel that was never meant to sustain you. Motivation is a spark, a match struck in the dark. And yes, for a moment, it lights everything up. For a moment, you feel alive again. You feel capable. You feel like maybe, just maybe, this time it will stick. But sparks don't last. They can't. That's not their nature. And so you're left standing in the dark again, wondering what's wrong with you, wondering why everyone else seems to have this endless reservoir of drive while you're here, scraping the bottom of an empty well. But what if the well was never empty? What if you've just been looking in the wrong place? There's an old story, a Sufi tale. I think about a man who loses his ring inside his house. But instead of searching inside, he's found on his hands and knees in the street, searching under the lamppost. A neighbor asks him, "Why are you looking out here?" And the man replies, "Because the light is better." We laugh at this man. We think how foolish, how illogical. But we do the same thing every single day. We've lost something essential, something deep, something real, and instead of going inward to find it, we search outside. We search in productivity hacks and morning routines and the validation of strangers. We search in business and achievement and the thin, flickering hope that if we just do enough, we'll finally feel like enough. We search under the lamppost because the light is better, because it's easier, because going inward is dark and uncertain and requires us to face things we've been avoiding for years. But motivation lives under the lamppost. It's external, it's temporary, it's conditional. What you've lost, what you're really searching for, is something else entirely. It's not motivation. It's remembering. You see, you weren't always like this. There was a time, maybe you can barely recall it now, when you didn't need a reason to feel alive, when curiosity was effortless, when you moved through the world with a kind of wonder that didn't require caffeine or deadlines or the fear of failure to sustain it. You were a child once, and children don't need motivation. They need permission. They need space. They need to be left alone long enough to remember what they actually love. But permission was revoked somewhere along the way. The world had other plans for you. It needed you to be useful, productive, practical. It needed you to stop asking why and start doing what you were told. And so you learned. You learned to ignore the quiet voice inside you that whispered, "This doesn't feel right." You learned to silence the part of you that wanted to stop and stare at the sky for no reason. You learned to trade wonder for worth, to trade presence for productivity. You learned to forget, And now here you are, years later, exhausted from the effort of being someone you were never meant to be, searching for motivation to keep going down a path that was never truly yours. Is it any wonder the spark won't stay lit? This is the trap, the one almost no one talks about. We've been conditioned to believe that motivation is the answer, that if we just want it badly enough, if we just push hard enough, if we just find the right technique, or the right mindset, or the right guru to follow, we'll finally break through. But motivation is a game you can't win, because it's built on a lie. The lie is this, that you need to become something other than what you are, that your natural state is insufficient, that who you are right now, without the goals and the grinding and the endless self-improvement, is not enough. And so you're stuck in this loop, chasing a feeling that only comes when you're trying to be someone else, exhausting yourself in pursuit of a version of life that requires you to abandon the one thing that could actually sustain you, yourself, your real self, not the one you've constructed to please others or meet expectations or prove your worth, but the self that existed before all of that, the one that knew, without being told, what mattered, what felt true, what felt alive. That self doesn't need motivation. That self needs remembering. So let me ask you something. And I want you to sit with this question for a moment, even if it feels uncomfortable. What if you stopped trying to motivate yourself? What if, just for a moment, you stopped searching for the spark and instead asked a different question? What have I forgotten? Not what do I need to do? Not how do I fix myself? But what did I once know that I've lost touch with? What did you love before you were told what to love? What fascinated you before you learned what was supposed to be important? What moved you before you needed a reason to be moved? These aren't small questions. They're not the kind you answer in a moment, but they're the questions that matter. Because somewhere in the answers, somewhere in the remembering, is the thing you've been searching for all along. Not motivation, but something far more enduring. Something that doesn't require convincing. Something that doesn't fade when the excitement wears off. Something that was always there, waiting for you to come home. There's a heaviness to always becoming, to constantly trying to turn yourself into something you're not yet, to living in a perpetual state of not enough, not disciplined enough, not focused enough, not driven enough. You carry this weight everywhere. It sits on your chest when you wake up. It follows you through the day, whispering that you should be doing more, that you're falling behind, that everyone else has figured it out, and you're still here, stuck in the same patterns, the same struggles, the same exhausting cycle of trying and failing and trying again. And the irony is this: the more you chase motivation, the heavier the weight becomes. Because motivation is always about the future. It's always about who you will be once you finally get your act together. Once you finally break the habit. Once you finally achieve the goal. Once you finally become the person you think you're supposed to be. But that person doesn't exist. And chasing them is like chasing your own shadow. The faster you run, the faster it runs. The harder you try, the more distant they become. This is the exhaustion you feel. Not the exhaustion of effort, but the exhaustion of perpetual dissatisfaction. Of never being allowed to just be. Of treating your present self like a rough draft, something to be edited and revised and eventually replaced with a better version. But what if there is no better version? What if the person you're trying to become is just a ghost you've conjured from other people's expectations, from society's blueprints, from the endless noise telling you who you should be? What if the real tragedy isn't that you lack motivation, but that you've forgotten you never needed it in the first place? Let me tell you what I mean. There's a difference between doing something because you think you should and doing something because it's an expression of who you already are. One requires motivation, discipline, willpower, constant convincing. The other requires nothing but honesty. Think about the things in your life that don't require motivation. The things you do without thinking, without forcing. The things that feel less like work and more like breathing. Maybe it's the way you listen when someone you love is hurting. You don't need a motivational video to show up for them. You don't need to set a reminder or pump yourself up or convince yourself it's worth it. You just do it because it's who you are. Or maybe it's the moment you lose track of time because you're absorbed in something, a conversation, a project, a thought that's unfolding in your mind like a flower opening. You don't need motivation to stay present in those moments. You're already there, fully, completely. These moments don't happen because you've disciplined yourself into them. They happen because you've remembered something fundamental, that life, in its truest form, isn't something you have to force yourself to engage with. It's something you're already part of. But we've been taught the opposite. We've been taught that we need to constantly improve ourselves, optimize ourselves, push ourselves beyond our limits. That rest is laziness. That ease is weakness. That if we're not constantly striving, we're not worthy of the life we have. And so we internalize this voice, this harsh, relentless inner drill sergeant that's never satisfied, that looks at every moment of stillness as wasted potential, that sees the present moment as just another obstacle between you and the future you're supposed to be building. And the more you listen to this voice, the more disconnected you become from the thing that actually sustains you, your own aliveness. Not your productivity, not your achievements, not your ability to hit goals and check boxes and prove to the world that you're worth something, but your simple, undeniable aliveness. The fact that you're here, that you're breathing, that you're capable of noticing the warmth of sunlight or the taste of water or the strange beauty of existing at all. This isn't weakness. It's not indulgence. It's not giving up. It's remembering. Here's what they don't tell you about motivation. It's a band-aid on a wound that needs something deeper. The wound is disconnection from yourself, from the present moment, from the quiet knowing inside you that has always understood what matters, even when the world told you otherwise. And you can't heal disconnection with more doing. You can't fix a lack of presence by sprinting faster into the future. You can't remember who you are by constantly trying to become someone else. At some point, you have to stop. Not forever. Not as an escape. But just long enough to ask, who am I when I'm not trying to be anything? Who are you when you're not performing? When you're not proving? When you're not measuring yourself against some impossible standard? Who are you in the silence? This is where the remembering begins. Not in the noise, not in the hustle, but in the quiet moments you've been taught to avoid. The moments where there's no distraction, no task, no goal to chase. Just this. Just the raw, unfiltered experience of being alive. And I know that this feels uncomfortable at first, because in the silence, all the things you've been running from start to surface. The doubt, the fear, the grief, the questions you've been avoiding. But underneath all of that is something else, something steady, something true. It's the part of you that existed before the world got loud, before you learned to distrust yourself, before you started believing that you needed to be fixed. That part of you doesn't need motivation. It doesn't need convincing. It doesn't need to be inspired or pumped up or tricked into action. It just needs to be remembered. So here's the shift, the one that changes everything. Stop asking, how do I motivate myself? Start asking, what am I avoiding by staying busy? Stop asking, why can't I stick to my goals? Start asking, are these even my goals? Or are they someone else's dream I've mistaken for my own? Stop asking, what's wrong with me? Start asking, what have I forgotten about who I am? These questions won't give you a quick fix. They won't make your life suddenly easy or effortless. But they will do something far more important. They will bring you home. Home to yourself. Home to the present moment. Home to the quiet, unshakable truth that you were never broken to begin with. You were just lost. And lost people don't need motivation. They need a path back. And the path back isn't forward. It's inward. So what does it mean to remember? It's not nostalgia. It's not regression. It's not trying to return to some idealized version of your childhood where everything was simple and nothing hurt. Remembering is something else entirely. It's the act of stripping away, layer by layer, all the identities you've worn, all the roles you've played, all the voices that aren't your own but have been living inside your head so long you've mistaken them for truth. It's the work of asking, again and again, is this mine? Or did I inherit this? That voice that says you're not doing enough, is that yours? Or is it an echo of a parent, a teacher, a culture that measures worth in output? That belief that rest is weakness, is that yours? Or is it something you absorbed from a world that profits from your exhaustion? That fear that if you slow down, you'll be left behind, is that yours? Or is it the collective anxiety of a society that's forgotten how to just be? Most of what you believe about yourself isn't even yours. It's borrowed. It's inherited. It's conditioning masquerading as truth. And remembering is the process of returning those things to their rightful owners. Not out of bitterness, not out of blame, but out of love. Out of respect for the person you actually are underneath all of it. There's a Zen story about a master and a student. The student comes to the master agitated, overwhelmed, seeking guidance. The master pours tea and keeps pouring, even as the cup overflows, even as the tea spills onto the table, onto the floor. The student cries out, "Master, stop!" The cup is full. It can't hold any more. And the master smiles. Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and ideas. How can I show you the way unless you first empty your cup? You are the cup, overflowing with should, bees and must, do's and borrowed dreams, and second-hand wisdom. And the remembering begins with emptying. Not by adding more. Not by learning more techniques or consuming more content, or finding the perfect morning routine, but by letting go, by pouring out, by creating space for what's actually true. Here's what happens when you start to empty the cups. At first, it feels like loss, like you're giving up on yourself, like you're surrendering to mediocrity. Because we've been taught that letting go is the same as giving up. That releasing control is the same as losing. But it's not. Letting go is how you find what was there all along. You let go of the goal that was never yours, and suddenly there's space for the desire that's been waiting underneath. You let go of the identity you've been clinging to, and suddenly there's room for the person you actually are to breathe. You let go of the need to be productive every second, and suddenly you remember what it feels like to be alive. This is the paradox. The less you try to motivate yourself, the more energy you have. The less you force yourself to become, the more you remember who you've always been. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be motivated 24/7. You were never meant to be constantly on, constantly striving, constantly proving. You were meant to move in rhythm, to ebb and flow, to have seasons of action and seasons of rest, to honor the natural cycles of expansion and contraction that govern everything in nature, including you. But we've been taught to override those rhythms, to push through, to hustle through the exhaustion, to ignore the signals that say slow down, rest, reconsider. And that's why motivation fails, not because you're weak, but because you're trying to force a river to flow uphill. So what does the remembering actually look like in practice? It looks like this. It's the moment you realize you don't have to finish everything today. That incompletion isn't failure. That leaving space for tomorrow isn't laziness, it's wisdom. It's the moment you give yourself permission to not know, to not have it figured out, to be uncertain without treating that uncertainty like a problem to solve. It's the moment you choose presence over productivity, even just once, even just for 5 minutes. You put down the phone, you close the tabs, you sit, you breathe, you notice you're alive. And maybe nothing profound happens. Maybe there's no lightning bolt of clarity. Maybe it just feels quiet, ordinary. But that's the point. The remembering isn't dramatic. It's not a peak experience or a spiritual awakening or a sudden transformation. It's quiet. It's subtle. It's the slow, steady work of coming back to yourself over and over again until being yourself stops feeling like something you have to try so hard to do. Here's what I want you to understand. You don't need to become someone else to live a meaningful life. You don't need to fix yourself to be worthy of rest. You don't need to earn the right to simply exist without constantly producing, without constantly proving, without constantly striving. You are already whole. You were always whole. You just forgot. And the work now, the real work, isn't about becoming. It's about remembering. Remembering what you loved before the world told you what to love. Remembering what brought you peace before you learned that peace needed to be earned. Remembering that the most profound moments of your life weren't the ones where you were most productive, but the ones where you were most present. So here's the practice. It's simple, uncomfortable, essential. Once a day, just once, stop trying to motivate yourself. Stop trying to force anything. Instead, ask, what do I actually want right now? Not what you should want. Not what you're supposed to want. Not what would make you more successful, or impressive, or worthy in the eyes of others. What do you actually want? And then, and this is the hard part, honor that answer. Even if it's small, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's just, I want to sit here and do nothing for 10 minutes. Do it. Not because it's productive. Not because it's self-care. Not because it will make you a better person, but because it's true. And truthfulness is the path back to yourself. The remembering doesn't happen all at once. It's not a destination. It's a practice, a returning, a coming home again and again to the person you were before the world told you who to be. And every time you choose presence over productivity, every time you honor your actual wants over your imagined obligations, every time you let yourself be without needing to become your remembering, you're emptying the cup. You're making space for what's real. And what's real doesn't need motivation. It only needs permission. There's a softness that comes with remembering, a gentleness toward yourself that you've been withholding for years. You stop treating your life like a problem to be solved. You stop treating yourself like a project to be completed. You begin to see that the exhaustion you've been feeling wasn't from a lack of discipline. It was from the violence of constantly trying to be something you're not. And when you stop that violence, when you release the grip, the forcing, the endless self-improvement, something unexpected happens. Not fireworks, not ecstasy, but something quieter, something more enduring. Peace. Not the peace of having it all figured out, but the peace of no longer needing to. This is the shift that changes everything. Not what you do, but how you exist. You stop living in the future. That phantom place where you'll finally be enough once you achieve the goal, break the habit, become the person you think you should be. And you start living here, in this moment, in this breath, in this singular, irreplaceable instant that is the only place life has ever happened. Because the future doesn't exist. It never has. It never will. It's a story, a projection, a hope or a fear masquerading as reality. All you've ever had is now, and now, and now again. And when you stop abandoning this moment for a future that never comes, something inside you settles. The frantic energy subsides. The need to constantly be more, do more, prove more, it loses its grip. And in the space that opens up, you remember something you've always known but forgot how to access. Life isn't something you have to earn. It's something you're already living. You don't need motivation to breathe. You don't need discipline to notice the sky. You don't need willpower to feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, or the way music moves through your body, or the strange, quiet miracle of being aware that you're aware. These things don't require effort. They only require presence. And presence is what we've lost. Not because it was taken from us, but because we abandoned it. We traded it for productivity, for achievement, for the endless pursuit of a future we thought would finally make us whole. But wholeness was never in the future. It was always here, in the messy, imperfect, gloriously ordinary present. And the moment you stop trying to escape this moment for a better one, the moment you stop waiting for your life to begin once you finally get your act together, that's the moment you remember. You remember that you were never broken. You were just convinced you were. So what now? What do you do with this remembering? Do you abandon your goals? Do you stop trying? Do you give up on growth? No. But you change your relationship to it. You stop chasing growth because you think you're insufficient. You stop setting goals to prove your worth. You stop trying to become someone else to finally be allowed to rest. Instead, you grow because it's natural. Because you're alive. Because alive things change and expand and evolve not out of obligation, but out of essence. You set goals not as evidence of your value, but as expressions of your curiosity. As ways of exploring what it means to be alive in this body, in this moment, in this strange and beautiful world. You try not because you have to, but because you want to, because something inside you, something quiet and true, is whispering, yes, this. Let's see where this goes. And when the whisper fades, when the energy wanes, when the motivation evaporates, you don't force it. You don't shame yourself. You don't spiral into self-criticism. You just return. You just remember. You ask what's actually here right now, what's actually true. And you honor that, even if it's rest, even if it's uncertainty, even if it's the honest admission, I don't know what I want, and that's okay. This is the art of living without needing to be motivated. It's the art of moving through life, not as a series of tasks to complete, but as a series of moments to inhabit. Some moments call for action, for energy, for engagement. Others call for stillness, for reflection, for the courage to simply be, and neither is better. Neither is more worthy. Neither proves your value or justifies your existence. They're just different expressions of the same life, your life. The one you've been given. The one you don't need to earn. So here's the final thing I want to leave with you. You've been looking for permission. Permission to rest. Permission to be uncertain. Permission to stop trying so hard and just exist. And you've been waiting for that permission to come from outside, from a guru, from a system. From the moment you finally achieve enough to prove you deserve it. But the permission you're waiting for can only come from one place, from you. You are the only one who can give yourself permission to stop performing, to stop probing, to stop treating your worth like something you have to constantly earn. You are the only one who can decide that you're enough. Not because you've achieved enough, not because you've become enough, but simply because you're here. And being here, being alive, being present, being honest is enough. It always was. So take a breath. Let it be slow. Let it be deep. Let it fill you completely. And as you exhale, let go. Let go of the story that you're not doing enough. Let go of the belief that you need to be fixed. Let go of the weight of constantly becoming. And in the space that opens up, just be. Be here. Be present. Be alive. Not because it will make you more successful. Not because it will help you reach your goals. But because this moment, this breath, this quiet, ordinary miracle of existence is the only place life has ever happened. And it doesn't need your motivation. It only needs your attention. You don't need to become someone else to live a meaningful life. You just need to remember who you were before the world convinced you that you weren't enough. And that remembering, it starts now. It starts here. It starts with this breath. Welcome home.